Hi guys, so Donald Trump says a date and place has been set for the North Korea summit. I think this is important because obviously this is a time where they're going to be discussing peace and safety, and at that time sudden destruction may come. So it's something that I'm going to be watching very closely in connection with Donald Trump, or on the topic of Donald Trump and the summit that he's going to be having with Kim Jong-un. It's a dangerous time because they want to have the summit in the DMZ. Now, after all these years, even though Kim Jong-un seems willing to denuclearize, if that was all part of the plan anyway, not sure all the citizens feel the same. It's possible he could be in danger there of, possibly being shot at. Just a thought, because I was thinking about the iPad Goat video again and the chalkboard scene in the background, and how in more detail you can see a man here, you can see what could be a gun behind this shark, and I think the reason it's behind the shark is because they may happen at the same time. If something happens to Donald Trump, then the submarines could then emerge, take advantage of the situation, of the chaos that would cause. And then Donald Trump is speaking at the NRA today, and what I found interesting was he's speaking at the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in Dallas, Texas. And that is just a short, this is where the convention center is, and that's a short 9-minute drive away from the Dealey Plaza where JFK was shot. And again, Donald Trump was the one who's responsible for releasing the JFK files. He instructed the National Archives to release an additional 19,000 documents on the JFK assassination on the 26th of April. And obviously then today, he's going to be in Texas, where the JFK assassination took place, just 9 minutes drive away from there, which I found significant. Again, he's going to be speaking at an NRA conference, which obviously the NRA is the National Rifle Association, heavy connection with guns. And then you've got the Peace Summit coming up potentially, where, if nothing happens today or tomorrow and it gets to that point, then he could be in danger then. So just something to watch for. That's just an interpretation. There's nothing set in stone there, but it's interesting that all these things line up with Donald Trump in association with guns and an assassinated president. And again, even with the iPad Goat video here, you got the D on the hat, which could stand for dunce, which is what the dunce cap is, but it could also stand for Donald Trump, which we know he's represented in this video. And George Bush is obviously from Texas, which again is where Donald Trump is speaking today. So something to watch, I think. And then we've got the Russians saying that the US intelligence services are preparing a new chemical weapons provocation in Syria. So there's reports that preparations for provocation started on April the 23rd. Civilians are being shipped to a territory near Jaffa oil field on the eastern bank of the Euphrates to participate in a staged filming of the alleged attack scene. The tensions over the conflict in Syria escalated following the April 7th incident in the town of Douma, where an alleged chemical attack took place. The US-led bloc accused the Syrian government of conducting a chemical attack against civilians and used their allegations to justify its April 14th missile strike on the country. Syria rejects all the allegations and say that the alleged attack was a provocation. Russian representatives later found the victims of the alleged attack, who revealed that they were forced to participate in the filming. It is important to note that the main source of the chemical attack allegations used by the US and its allies was the so-called White Helmets, an infamous pro-militant propaganda organization funded by the US and its allies. Following the Douma chemical attack story, the US State Department has reportedly halted financing to the White Helmets. However, the Department of State, or the State Department, is far from being the only source of funding of this organization for the US-led bloc. So it appears that the White Helmets were the ones who were responsible for saying that Syria was using chemical weapons on the civilians, and the OPCW has just left Syria with their samples, and we'll find out what they found, shortly. But now we've got the State Department halting financing to the very people who were saying that the chemical attack took place, which is kind of setting the stage for the news that there was no chemical attack, and that it was staged, a false flag, and we'll see what that brings. At the same time, in this report, it's talking about the Euphrates River, and again, the Euphrates is a place of significance, a place of importance, particularly in the Bible. There is a dam along the Euphrates River, which, I think it was last year, the ISIL had control of, and Syria managed to take it back late last year. The dam is set on unstable ground, so it constantly needs to be refilled. And at the time when ISIL or ISIS, whichever terrorist organization, took over the dam, at that point they weren't maintaining it. So eventually, when the Syrians got it back, it would have been in a state of disrepair, and the U.S. Army Corps, or Army Corps of Engineers, was involved, in analyzing it and, potentially trying to fix it. But at the same time, it could be just another setup. Why would you build a dam on unstable ground? At the end of the day, if the dam fails, the area floods, the river then, after the flooding, would dry up, and that would obviously lead to the biblical prophecy of the Euphrates River being dried up, and the armies of the East and the West being able to, fight each other when the armies of the East cross over the Euphrates River. Now, in association with that, the US is building up in eastern Euphrates, aimed at partitioning Syria, is what the Russian, I can't remember what he is, defense minister, I can't remember, Lavrov anyway, foreign minister. He's saying that the US is building up the military on the eastern side of the Euphrates River in an attempt to separate Syria. So the US claims that it is seeking to rid Syria of terrorists, but in fact it is actively settling on the eastern Euphrates in a bid to disintegrate Syria. This approach in Damascus will become a ruinous heap, so there you go, another biblical part. This approach is also encouraged by a number of US allies, he said in an interview with Italy's Panorama magazine published on Thursday. The top Russian diplomat also said that the suspected chemical weapons attack in the Damascus suburb town of Duma on April 7th was a new dirty provocation made by those who do not want peace in Syria. 1 week after the incident, the US, Britain and France launched a coordinated missile attack against sites and research facilities near Damascus and Homs, with the purported goal of paralyzing the Syrian government's capability to produce chemicals. Syria has rejected the accusations of possessing chemicals. It surrendered its chemical stockpile in 2013 to a mission led by the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the OPCW, the same people who are responsible now for investigating whether a chemical attack actually took place. Lavrov said Russia expects OPCW experts to conduct an independent investigation into the Duma incident and invite specialists from the US and France to join the probe. He further described as absurd US accusations that Moscow and Damascus had delayed the entry of the OPCW experts to Duma in order to cleanse the site of the alleged gas attack. When the OPCW team was ready to depart for the Syria capital and then for Duma, an act of aggression was conducted against Syria, a sovereign state, and a UN member said. Any specialist may confirm that it would be impossible to destroy traces of chemical attack amid destroyed infrastructure, as agents penetrate deeply into soil and walls, he added. Separately on Thursday, that's true actually, that is true. Separately on Thursday, during a press conference with Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Saddafi in the Black Sea Resort city of Sochi, Lavrov accused the US of training anti-Damascus militants near its military base in the town of Al-Tafen in Syria's Homs province. So there is the build-up on Euphrates, the River Euphrates, is a very significant and important location strategically and biblically. It's happening as we speak. It's all unfolding. That's where they were fighting on April the 13th/14th when the strikes were taking place. The Russians and the Syrians were trying to take back control of the river. They weren't successful, and the build-up just continues. So you can see how biblical prophecy is unfolding. You can't really ignore it. And one thing I just wanted to just present here is an idea of perception, because when we look at the world map, if you do view the world as round, or even if you don't, if you view the world as flat, and somehow, I don't know, being able to continue on in like some sort of infinite loop, that would just make it round. So let's just say that the world is round. Yeah, I know I'm going to get comments disagreeing, so, guys, I'm not giving you my opinion, I'm just giving you an interpretation here. at this location, this is where I am in the UK, in London, and this is what we term as the western side of the world. So if we draw a line, say down here, everything on this side is the west and everything on this side is the east. But it only takes perception. It's an idea of perception, because if you're just in a slightly different location, say for example here in the middle of the Pacific, for example, this is now the west and this is now the east, depending on where you're situated. So everything is an idea of perception. The way we perceive the world is the way that we respond to it, you know, emotionally and physically. The Bible is a key book in understanding where things are going in terms of our reality, you know. But at the same time, we're told to watch for the signs in the Bible. And when we watch for those signs, sometimes people don't agree that we should be doing so. I disagree. I feel it's something that just makes sense. If you're told to watch for the signs, you're going to watch for those signs, regardless of kind of where they're coming from. You know, look at them, think about them. At the end of the day, if you decide that they're irrelevant, then they're irrelevant to you, but they may not be irrelevant to someone else. As it goes, you know, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So we need to just bear that in mind and remain consistent in what we do. You guys, with all that said, just keep an eye on what's going on with Donald Trump, Nra, Texas, JFK, George Bush, JFK files, all of that being connected together, and this potential for another chemical attack to take place in Syria, which could then allow further escalation to take place. As I said, the OPCW has now left Syria, so we'll be getting a result from them very shortly in regards to whether a chemical attack took place according to them or not. Again, whether you trust them or not is down to you. And just this idea of perception, where things are, you know, things look one way to you and another way to someone else. So you just have to bear that in mind. You guys have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and God bless.